effect. That's all you're looking at.
Well, how about the oceans and stuff like that?
Oh, like the tides?
Yeah, how do we keep the oceans from, going out of the building?
Off?
Yeah.
That's a good one. The people, in fact, the movie Thor, with Asgard and that whole cosmic waterfall thing, Thor did us no favors whatsoever because people get so hung up on space, they think that it's a flat disk floating in space. No, the water can't fall off for the same reason water can't fall off in a lake, because you've got a shoreline all the way around. That's basically it. The shoreline is the continent of Antarctica. And then eventually, the edge of Antarctica, thousands of miles inland, you have some sort of barrier, some sort of wall that's holding the water in. Again, why doesn't the water fall off? Why doesn't the water fall out of a snow globe when it's sitting on a desk? Well, it's being held in by something. That's all it is. You're basically living in you're living in an island in the middle of a giant saltwater lake in the middle of a building.
Interesting. I've never looked at it that way. I mean, I look at Antarctica, as melting, the sea is rising, supposedly, but maybe, again, it's all a civilization. It's not really real.
Yeah, climate, it's funny because I didn't get any climate change questions for the first couple of years when I was starting to get into this. And then people started asking me. In fact, when I do like a Q&A session, it's usually one of the first 10 questions that I get asked is, do you still believe in climate change? And I go, well, if it's an enclosed system, a building, then climate change takes on a whole different meaning. As a matter of fact, it makes way more sense because doesn't the term greenhouse gases mean a lot more if it's an actual greenhouse? Which leads into a whole nother thing, which is it's one of my 5 big proofs, which is the gravity, that you're holding everything down right now, versus the vacuum of space. Well, and so I don't know where you are, but let's say you have a second floor. There's a floor above you, and you make that second floor into a vacuum chamber. Put a cork in the ceiling, you pull the cork. What happens? Well, the air is going to rush. It's going to be instantly, by the way. It's not going to be like the movies where you get a little hole and you have 5 minutes of air left. It's absolutely in a fraction of a second, all gone instantly. Look up a wonderful series of videos on YouTube called Vacuum versus Steel Rail Cars, where the Germans just destroy, they crush rail cars like they're being stomped by Godzilla. And so the question is, if the air rushed upstairs instantly as soon as you pulled that cork in your ceiling, and it absolutely will, because pressure cannot exist next to an area of non-pressure, then how exactly are the clouds and everything staying where we are right now? And I know you're going to come back and say, well, because of gravity. I go, no, because remember I just told you what would happen if there was a vacuum chamber above you right now, right above you. And you say, well, the other one's really, really, really far. Yeah, but it's really, really, really big. If you believe in space, space is the ultimate vacuum chamber. It's literally billions of times larger than the Earth, and it's just vacuum. So why is our atmosphere still here? It's still here because it's a pressurized system. Because for the same reason why the air can't get out of a snow globe. You're living in a building. Simple as that.
Or a big, huge globe.
What's the globe going to do? The globe cannot, remember what I said, the gravity of the globe cannot beat a vacuum under any circumstance whatsoever. Vacuum always wins. Vacuum is way, way stronger. It's one of the laws of thermodynamics. And by the way, I got to get this out there, and I don't know your audience that well, but gravity, and you can look this up, gravity is just a theory. In fact, the best scientists will tell you, they're not shy about telling you. They'll say, yeah, we can't tell you what gravity is, but we can tell you what it does. We can tell you the symptoms of gravity. And that's where they get kind of stuck, because they can't replicate it. Oh, yeah, sure, you can drop your pencil and it falls to the floor, whatever, but the same thing can be said of density, which is, why does when you take a basketball or a football or a beach ball or whatever, it's underneath the water, and you let it go from underwater, pops back up to the surface. Why? Well, because of density. It's going the other way. Same thing could be said for heavier objects falling through the water. So, yeah, it's a weird, I'm not kidding you, it's the more... Everybody that starts down this road tries to disprove it. I hated flat Earth getting into this. I was so stubborn, I thought I could crush it in a weekend. 9 months later, I'm sitting there going, I can't believe I can't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. Now, can I prove to you right now, like for example, that the flat Earth is absolutely real? No, I cannot. But I can create so much reasonable doubt in the globe, which is what everybody does, that you have nothing to turn back on except for some sort of flat model. And that's why our retention rate is so high. Because I don't have to convince you of anything. I just say, hey, prove the globe to yourself one day. Spend a little time. Don't give up. Just try to prove the globe. And you'll end up chipping away at it slowly but surely. And then one day, all of a sudden, it's like there's nothing left. So, yeah.
That's
Weird.
why I kind of lean that we're nothing more than a computer civilization. I just feel that because it makes more logical sense.
I absolutely agree. But to your point, and I don't know, like if you play any games, but every computer simulation that we've made, with the exception of like very, very few, I mean, there's some less than 1%. We'll just say 99% of all computer simulations made are made perfectly flat. I don't care what video game you're playing, whether it's Fortnite or Grand Theft Auto or Minecraft or any of those things, Warcraft, they're all flat. They're made on a perfectly flat square. It might as well be a giant cracker. The reason is because it's easier to program, right? To program. Most developers, software programmers, are lazy just by nature. And so if the person that's playing the game, whether it's, say, Fortnite or GTA or whatever, if they don't notice, if they can't tell that there isn't a curve, then you don't build one. You don't build one in. And so, yeah, of course. I mean, every simulation I ever had to deal with when I started out playing video games for a living, there's in fact, it's not even when we build simulations, we don't build them in the shape of a snow globe. We build them in a box because computers hate curves. They hate computers can't draw circles, for example. Most people don't know that. It's why pixels are square. Tell a computer how to draw a circle. We can draw a circle. It's instinctive. It's in us. But a computer can only draw right angles. Now, they can be really, really, really tiny right angles, so it appears that it's drawing a circle. But when you zoom in on it, like the old days, it's why, like the old video games were like really, really blocky, like the Atari 2600s. But yeah, everything's in a giant box.
Interesting. One of the listeners out there has a question, and the question is, do you think we've actually ever been to the moon?
No. Good Lord, no. That's a great question. Because you have to start there. And I don't want to pick on American patriotism or anything like that, because we're all brought up in this country to rah-rah, wave the flag, go team, and America's the greatest. We went to the moon, nobody else went to the moon. No, the Apollo program, everything, Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Voyager, all those programs. As a matter of fact, you could look up, and you don't even have to look very hard. I'll give you some just quick bullet points on what you aren't seeing when it comes to the moon. So look at any like Apollo photo, everything from 11 all the way through 17. Look at things like shadows intersecting. Shadows only go one direction. One light source, shadows only go in one direction, unless that light source is really, really close. Remember, the sun's 93 million miles away. You go outside, all the shadows are in one direction on a summer day. No blast crater underneath the capsule. That thing has 10,000 pounds of thrust, and it was landing on ash, like some really fine powdery ash, and none of that ash is out of place at all. There's no splay pattern anywhere. You light a 4th of July rocket on your driveway, that splay pattern is going to be there for 3 months. 10,000 pounds of thrust, and there's nothing there. How about a little engineering? How about the VHF transmitter that was sitting there, the little satellite dish? I mean, you can look it up. It's not secret technology. That's a VHF transmitter from 1969. It's got a range on a good day of 50 miles, maybe. And even then, you're transmitting Morse code. And this thing was doing 250,000 miles through the Van Allen belts with 10 frames per second video, color and audio, two-way communication with pinpoint accuracy. I couldn't do this. We can do this now. Could not do this. But the biggest one for me, for Apollo, and it's not just Apollo, but anything that you see a spacesuit, and I challenge anybody, you can email me and send me the specs on this. Tell me how a spacesuit works. And you're saying, what are you talking about? I go, no, I don't care about the oxygen levels and the carbon dioxide levels and the nitrogen or heating or cooling. Tell me how a spacesuit, what technology stops the vacuum of space? Meaning thermodynamics says that pressure must have a container. And if it's a soft container, it absolutely will go rigid. It will turn into a balloon, and then it'll eventually burst. You can watch videos all day long. You put a football, a basketball, a Stretch Armstrong, put anything in a vacuum, soda can, put anything in a vacuum chamber, it will burst before it reaches 100% vacuum. And yet, these astronauts were walking around, could move their arms, their elbows and knees perfectly fine. They had all their articulation points, manipulate their fingers perfectly. Those things should have been as useless as oven mitts up there. And never, ever saw any of that. It was amazing what you can get away with if you pass it off on TV. It's like, well, it's on the news. It has to be real. Has to be real. No one would ever fake something like that. Or I got one more for you. Show me an audio, send me an audio recording of an astronaut in any mission whatsoever telling you or mentioning how many minutes of air they have left. That it's something just blew by everybody, which would, including me, for at least 2.5 years when I was looking into this, which is like, if you know scuba divers probably, people that have scuba dived, all you care about when you're scuba diving is one thing: the time on your watch, how much air you have left, your oxygen-nitrogen mixture. It's all you care about. How many minutes you have left, because eventually when you reach a certain point, you're going back in. You're going back up to the surface. The astronauts did not care, ever. They had this magical, unlimited air supply that they never, ever cared about. Nothing, they never checked their spacesuits. And we're talking analog technology. I mean, if you want to tell me that, they might have this in, now in 2020, maybe maybe you might be able to convince me. But in 1969, we didn't even have Duracell batteries back then.
Yeah, you're right on that one.
How the hell did they pull that stuff off? So sorry, short. I know I was ranting there, but the moon mission. I'm sorry. It's just it has not aged well over the years. Has not.
Well, a lot of people theorize it was shot in a studio.
Oh God, yes. Yeah. I mean, it was. Well, here's one more for you. Well, on top of there's no stars ever, and I know they'll say, well, because the exposure settings. It's like, okay, since everybody says that, they would have known this, and they would have taken at least one roll of film with the correct exposure settings. It would have been gorgeous. And we never ever saw it. Yeah, it was shot in some studio, probably some Air Force base off in the desert somewhere, and it just never. I mean, come on, we weren't the ones that brought. I mean, people have been criticizing the moon program ever since they quit. By 1980, there were already people, but there was no internet to share anything. Social media has really changed the game. Anyway, sorry. What else you got?
Well, you know what? It's time for us to go to break, and this break is about 8 minutes, so that gives you time to stretch, have some Java, a cup of tea, or whatever. And We'll be back with Mark Sargent and talking about the flat Earth. So stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. We will be back in about 8 minutes.
As I gaze upon the annals of time, one thing that comes through: we are not alone in this universe. It's a thought that rings true. Ancient cave dwellers drew spacecraft on the walls. It's a recurring I've seen the same thing while walking late at night.